Hi everyone, I hope each one of you are doing fine and staying safe. And I'm sure you had a wonderful day one at the Azure Community Conference. My name is Sandeep Alur and I head the Microsoft Technology Center, which is in short called as MTC and Microsoft India. While I'm here to do the closing note for day one, I will share a bit of my perspective in terms of key trends, techniques that we're seeing as Microsoft, and in my observation when we hosted hundreds of customers at MTC in the recent past. Of course, the current pandemic times and the post-pandemic, technology will have a profound impact in terms of how it will shape our society and community going forward. Talking about the fact that this is a community conference, kudos to organizers, kudos to all the MVPs who've come together to pretty much get all of us under one umbrella and make sure that we learn, we contribute, and we take it from there. As an attendee, if you're not part of any community, I think this is an opportunity to literally sign up for this community and establish continuous learning. I've kind of seen MVPs come together for a long time now. In fact, in the current times, they hosting this conference does a lot good for each one of us, as technology is on a fast track. And the only way that we can keep pace with technology is to establish continuous learning. And continuous learning will only happen if you probably become part of a cohort where you follow in terms of what everyone is looking at as the trends and techniques and understand that in its entirety. I mean, if you look at the current times, in the last, I would say 6 to 8 months, the number of announcements we have made as Microsoft is difficult to keep track. And hence, this community is something which makes a huge difference to each one of us. And if you're a developer or an architect or a technology lead, this conference will absolutely elevate your know-how in these 3 days. And I encourage each one of you to participate all 3 days because you have great lineup of speakers, great content, and that's something which is essential for all of us. And again, as part of the community, it's by community for the community, so you'll have an opportunity to learn and contribute. So keep up with that rhythm as you go along. Now, coming to technology, yes, as I said earlier, I'm going to share a few perspective from my end. But first things first, if you look at as Microsoft, we have a worldview. In fact, in the past, if you look at it, probably 78 years back, our worldview was mobile first, cloud first. So all technologies that we built as Microsoft revolved around that philosophy. But in the last 4 to 5 years, you must have heard leaders at Microsoft, right from Satya to everybody else, talk about a worldview which is intelligent cloud, intelligent edge. Yes, every single technology that we build today embrace that philosophy beautifully. In fact, while all of us understand intelligent cloud, because that's where you get elasticity, you get scale, you get availability, all the stuff is something which is mainstream, you understand really well. But in the current times, and probably a trend we're seeing where it's exploding is intelligent edge. I will share a few examples as we go along. But it's important that each one of us understand this construct, which is intelligent edge. It's also a design philosophy. A lot of design patterns come into the picture when it comes to building such a solution, which kind of embraces both the construct, intelligent cloud and the edge in unison. Now let's look at an example. Just recently, we announced a service under cognitive API umbrella called spatial analysis. Now, when I say intelligent edge, this API, this capability, spatial analysis, is probably a classic example of how it lights up a scenario in the industry where there's a need for edge computing to be reality, right? So as you see on the screen right now, this API does the magic of people counting. It does capture social distancing. It also ensures that as people come in and out of a specific defined logical zone, for example, at a point of sale, if you want to ensure that there are X number of people who should always be there as a minimum, beyond that, there has to be an alert, you can actually count the number of people entering and exiting a specific zone. So in summary, in this case, it's all cameras in a real estate or a retail store, right? So ability for me to deploy that functionality onto an edge computing environment where we can in real time inference number of people in a near field of view or a far field of view, number of people within a specific defined logical zone in terms of how many entering that zone, how many exiting the zone, how much time they spend within the zone, and of course, number 3, people counting, right? So this is a classic evidence of a functionality being hosted in the edge compute environment where, by the way, when I'm saying host an edge compute environment, we're talking about hosting machine learning models. That means ability for us to do inferences closer to where data is getting generated. It doesn't make practical sense in the current times to actually take video feeds to the cloud for inferences. No, you're better off doing inferences closer to where data is getting generated. That way, you can ensure there's least latency when decisions are being made, right? So every single technology that we're building today, it has this hybrid construct, which is cloud and edge, ability for us to pretty much host infrastructure in the public cloud and in the private cloud, or even in an edge network for that matter. And recently, just to complement the example I just quoted, recently we announced Azure Stack Edge. That's a commodity hardware which basically sits in a specific real estate and closer to where data is getting generated, and you can do computing there. In fact, we also announced SQL Edge, considering the fact that it's optimized for IoT scenarios. You can actually host SQL Edge onto this edge computing environment in terms of data storage. Also, ability for you to pretty much run machine learning models using this environment, right? So just to summarize this thought, yes, most of what you will build going forward will have to consider edge network dominantly. In fact, when 5G becomes a reality globally, this intelligent edge will be a lot more powerful in terms of exchanging intelligence across the board and ability for them to make inferences which matters most at that point in time. So moving on, as developers, leads, architects, etc., it's important to understand some of the modern application characteristics. As we host as customers at the tech center, these have kind of have been the shining stars, if I can use the term, when it comes to people building modern applications, right? So as you see on the screen right now, it is basically managed databases, containers, serverless, artificial intelligence, and DevOps. Each of them, if you look at it, right, they complement overall application development significantly. Let's take containers. I'm sure you know this, but I'm just making sure that you understand the context behind how it's being perceived in the industry. Now, if any application developer, any independent software vendor, when they're building an application, they're looking at attaining infrastructure independence. Now, that's where container makes a huge difference. Ability for them to pretty much take the software across intelligent cloud, intelligent edge, and make sure their application runs independent of the infrastructure. They're not bound to infrastructure. That way, you get the flexibility in hosting your application. Now, of course, serverless. In fact, if you look at bulk of the innovation we're doing, even serverless as a philosophy has been taken to hybrid private clouds and edge networks, where you can actually, though you're using native services, ability for you to take those functions, despite the fact that you're not pretty much spinning off infrastructure, and containerize them and take it to edge networks or a private cloud is a reality. So containers, edge networks, serverless, that's a powerful combination. In fact, going forward, the fourth trend, which is basically artificial intelligence, it's given that every single application you build going forward, you will have to bake in intelligence. It's not something that customers will ask, saying, hey, you know what, you have to build an application, make sure you have so-and-so intelligence. No, given the fact that we have the power to infuse intelligence into everything that we build going forward, that's an essential ask from most of the customers, right? Managed databases. Yes, we live in the current times where we see a massive explosion of data. Again, if you look at it, everything ties back to the intelligent cloud, intelligent edges philosophy, right? So when I say data explosion is probably dominant in the current times, yes, that's also because of the edge networks, which is also exploding significantly, right? So ability for us to look at managed databases where bulk of the infrastructure behind the scenes, bulk of storage, everything is completely in a cloud native form, and we focus on the business functionality dominantly, right? A classic evidence here is Azure Synapse Analytics, which basically is analytics as a service on top of your big data and data warehousing dominantly. The fourth one is artificial intelligence. It's assumed, or basically it's given that going forward, every single application that we build will have intelligence. It's not something that one would state saying, yes, build an application, but ensure you bake in intelligence. No, it's given. So hence, artificial intelligence is something which is it's going to become a foundation of everything that we build going forward, right? So ability for us to infuse, let's say, cognitive APIs, pre-built AI into an application without having any knowledge of data science is a reality today, right? So AI is something which definitely will make a huge difference, will amplify the application's ability to be a lot more real for the consumers. And of course, number fifth, in my view, it's a foundation. Whether it's applications or machine learning, DevOps becomes central to how you bake in agility into your overall development life cycle, right? So today we talk about attaining flexibility in deploying software across multiple cloud environments, be it public cloud, private cloud, or edge networks to a greater extent. So DevOps for applications and MLOps for machine learning data science projects becomes very, very key, and that's also an area where it is fast becoming mainstream. Of course, DevOps has been a mainstream for some time, but MLOps taking center stage is a reality today. While I've spoken about the modern application characteristics, I think if there's one theme that we have caught as part of our interactions with customers dominantly at MTC is the need for automation. Yes, every customer expects, demands automation as they go along, more so in the current times where it's impossible for any human interventions to happen for all use cases. They're looking at how can we bring in autonomy into most of our systems, right? Autonomous systems, I would say dominantly in the manufacturing sector, where they're looking at how can systems operate with autonomy and get things done. And of course, where there can be human intervention, how can intelligent automation, which is basically a classic manifestation of RPA as a technology and AI coming together, right? I'm sure you've heard of Power Automate, which is basically an RPA service offering in the cloud under the umbrella of Power Platform, right? So today, if you look at two themes, yes, intelligent automation and autonomous systems. Those are dominant, and I think they're going to be dominant. I think that's going to be the crux of what we're going to see in the current decade, with technology complementing that philosophy dominantly. While all of us understand as developers in terms of building applications, I think AI is something which is a talk of the town. Every single interaction of ours will have AI, which is going to be central, all given, but especially people who are thinking of infusing AI, be it developers, ML developers, or data scientists, if there is one ask of each one of you, is to look at responsible machine learning as a tenet that will become a classic manifest as part of your application development lifecycle. As Microsoft, we've been a strong advocates of responsible AI for a long time now, and as with each passing day, we're complementing data scientists, ML developers with tools and techniques which will help them address the responsible AI dominantly, right? We're talking about tools where we can help you address model interpretability. Yes, explainability becomes a key ask when you build machine learning applications, right? So when you build a machine learning model, how can you justify the outcome, right? Ability for us to understand what went into the model giving certain inferences, right? So generally, it's a black box to a greater extent for a lot of scenarios, but need of the hour is to address explainability or model interpretability becomes key as we go along, right? Given a scenario, while you're building a machine learning model, basis the outcome, how can we go back and understand the rationale behind the model's prediction, right? The reason why the model gave a specific output is because of so and so reason. I think that's very critical, right? Again, it becomes very difficult in the data science world where bulk of what happens, as an example, with a neural network is a black box. So can we look at tools and techniques to complement that ask of a data scientist in terms of their ability to go and explain the model is very key. And as Microsoft, our tool set within the cloud under the umbrella of machine learning service embraces some of the open source libraries. Couple of names to quote here is Interpret ML and also Fairlearn. Right, so these two are baked into the machine learning service, machine learning studio in the cloud. And as you build models, you can pretty much initiate model explainability, and that will ensure that you get results, you get visualization, which will help you understand, decipher, and make sense of the model outcome. So the model explainability comes actually under the thematic of understanding the machine learning model. The second one is protect, right? End of the day, the world of machine learning is all about data. Now, take any domain for that matter, there is a need for us to secure data, make sure privacy is safeguarded. Now, for the machine learning model to be effective, you have to train in the cloud, right? I mean, that's where the compute exists today. Now, the bigger question businesses ask is, hey, I don't want to send raw data to the cloud. I want to encrypt and send data to the cloud. But to encrypt data, how will computation happen? Somebody has to decrypt it, right? So that's where one of the cool innovations from Microsoft, which is, we call it homomorphic encryption, right? This is a technique. It's again, this is all open sourced. You can refer to this link I'm showing right now to understand more about it. But homomorphic encryption basically helps you encrypt data at the client side, send it to server, but ability for us to do computation on encrypted data is a reality because of this innovation, right? So check it out. It's one of the, I would say, a required capability as you take vast majority of data to the cloud and train it there and build a model and then take it to a place that matters most, right? In fact, this innovation comes under protect for sure in terms of a thematic. And another cool innovation, which we've kind of heard for some time now, is confidential computing, right? This is, as Microsoft, we announced this quite some time back, and the confidential computing pretty much talks about having an environment which is called trusted execution environment, where your software is run with utmost importance to securing data, where it is basically an environment where you can intrude into the environment. It's again hardware powered innovation in collaboration with Intel, and this is basically one of the innovations, one of the virtual machine instances we announced in the cloud, which will complement confidential computing as we go along. So under the umbrella of protect, yes, confidential computing and homomorphic encryption becomes key as you look at safeguarding your data, safeguarding privacy of customers, and ensuring you definitely train in the cloud for sure. You definitely take data to the cloud. I'm quoting an example of a machine learning model. It can be any scenario for that matter, right? In terms of taking your data to the cloud to secure it. But considering machine learning model development, yes, training happens dominantly in the cloud because of the computer environment. And when the training happens, when the computation happens, can it happen on encrypted data? That's what this confidential computing and homomorphic encryption brings to the fore. The third thematic is, of course, control. The audit trail traceability becomes key, and this is where MLOps dominantly takes center stage. Ability for us to stay in close proximity when it comes to data and the model associated with the data, and ability to understand the accuracy every time you train the model, and the most accurate model being pushed to the production has to be supervised, has to be automated. That's where MLOps comes into the fore. So in summary, ability for an enterprise to, or a business to adopt responsible AI design principle becomes very key. While I spoke about these three thematic under the umbrella of responsible machine learning, yes, safeguarding privacy, safeguarding security of consumers becomes very key. Somebody has to stay accountable as inferences happen. And of course, end of the day, we're talking about fairness when it comes to every decision being taken, right? So in summary, yes, we spoke about technology innovations at Microsoft, complementing intelligent cloud, intelligent edges philosophy. We spoke about some of the new innovations when it comes to responsible machine learning, right? And end of the day, as a software developer, as a technical lead and architect, ability for us to understand the current theme, which is automation, becomes very key as we build softwares for today and tomorrow. Thank you so much for the opportunity to address each one of you. And as I said earlier, it couldn't have happened in a better time, where there's a need for each one of us to establish a sense of belonging with the community when it comes to fostering learning, when it comes to making your learning mainstream as technology is on a fast track, right? So, well, I know you had a wonderful day one, and I would encourage each one of you to attend day 2 and day 3. By the way, day 3, it's going to be live sessions. That gets interesting as presenters prepare hard and get the best of the content across to you. So Once again, thanks for this opportunity. You guys have a wonderful day 2 and day 3 and happy learning.